I'm Sarah, welcome to the show. And did you know that in all of Israel's history, only 3 kings ruled over all the tribes? Saul, David, and David's son Solomon were the first 3 kings in Israel's history, and the only 3 kings that reigned over the whole people of Israel. And that's just one of the things about the kings of Israel that I bet you didn't know. While Saul and Solomon started off being king over all the tribes, David was king over only the tribe of Judah for 7.5 years. During that time, he lived in Hebron. When Saul, the first king, died, along with his oldest son Jonathan, after a 2-year civil war, the rest of the tribes came to David and asked him to be king over them. David moved to Jerusalem and ruled there for 33 years, making his total time as king 40 years. Solomon, David's son and successor, built the Great Temple in Jerusalem, taking 7 years to complete it. However, he took 13 years to complete his own palace. Priorities, man. Solomon is famous for his wisdom. 1 Kings 10, 23, and 24 say, King Solomon was greater in riches and wisdom than all the other kings of the earth. The whole world sought audience with Solomon to hear the wisdom God had put in his heart. Solomon is also famous for having lots of wives. The Bible says he had 700 wives and 300 concubines. That's 1,000 women for those of you keeping count. And having that many wives didn't work out so well for Solomon. Though he started off following and being faithful to God, his many wives led him to worship other gods, and he didn't stay faithful to the Lord the way David did. When Solomon died, his son Rehoboam became king. This is when the kingdom split into a northern kingdom called Israel and a southern kingdom called Judah. The kingdom of Israel was made up of 10 tribes, and the kingdom of Judah was made up of only 2, Judah and Benjamin. And for the record, it's mostly Rehoboam's fault the nation split. The first king of the northern kingdom Israel was Jeroboam. He screwed up at the very beginning by committing what became known as the sin of Jeroboam. FYI, it's pretty dang bad to have a sin named after you. Jeroboam didn't want anyone from Israel going down to Judah to worship, because the temple was in Jerusalem, which was in Judah. He was afraid that if they went to Judah to worship, it wouldn't be long before they just decided to go back to being ruled by the Davidic king. That's the king descended from David, who was the king of Judah. Then he's out of a job and probably dead. So Jeroboam sets up alternative worship sites within the kingdom of Israel, one in the south at Bethel and one at the northernmost point of the kingdom, the city of Dan. He set up calf idols at both places and sacrificed to them, and encouraged all of Israel to do the same. Just like with the golden calf in the Exodus story, Jeroboam wasn't trying to get the people to worship another god. They were still worshiping the Lord, Yahweh, but they were doing it in the worst possible way ever. The second commandment is pretty clear and straightforward. Don't make and worship idols. So what do? They make and worship idols. They pretty much shattered that commandment. Jeroboam also made anyone he wanted a priest, instead of having the priest come solely from the tribe of Levi. And speaking of the tribes, David and his descendants were from the tribe of Judah. Saul, the very first king, was from the tribe of Benjamin. Jeroboam and his son Nadab were from the tribe of Ephraim, and later kings of Israel, Baasha and Elah, were from the tribe of Issachar. All in all, the northern kingdom of Israel had 19 kings, and the southern kingdom of Judah had 19 kings and 1 queen. But she wasn't very nice. In Israel, Zechariah was king for only 6 months. He was assassinated by Shallum, who then became king. Shallum was king for only 1 month. He was assassinated by Menahem, who then became king. Zimri assassinated Elah, and then became king. But he was only king for 7 days. When the military commander Omri attacked the city he was in, he set a fire and died in it. Then Omri was king. The capital city of Israel was Samaria, which was built by King Omri. Omri was actually a very prominent king. He fortified cities, led successful military campaigns, and established peace with both the southern kingdom of Judah and with Phoenicia. Omri is mentioned in several ancient Near Eastern texts, including the records of 3 Assyrian kings, Shalmaneser III, Tiglath-Pileser III, and Sargon II. Israel was even called the land of Omri many years after Omri's dynasty was gone. Yet the Bible barely mentions Omri, except for the account of how he became king, saying that he founded the city of Samaria, and reporting that he continued in the sin of Jeroboam. The reader is referred to another document, the book of the Annals of the Kings of Israel, which we don't have. The Bible doesn't say much about Omri, even though he was probably the most prominent and well-known king of Israel in that region, because the Bible isn't concerned with those things. The books of 1st and 2nd Kings were written to show why Israel and Judah were conquered and sent into exile. The only part of Omri's reign that is relevant is the fact that he continued to support the idol worship at Bethel and Dan that was set up by Jeroboam. This is a powerful statement about what the Bible and God deem important. Another king we find mentioned in ancient Near Eastern texts is Hezekiah of Judah. The Sennacherib Prism is one of, if not the most well-preserved Assyrian document we have found. On it, Sennacherib recounts his military victories, all the cities and kings he conquered, all the spoils he took from all the conquered, etc., etc., etc. But when it comes to Jerusalem and Hezekiah the Judahite, the account boasts that Sennacherib shut him up in Jerusalem like a caged bird. This is a very good PR spin. The point is that Sennacherib does not claim or brag about entering Jerusalem or conquering it. And if he had entered and conquered Jerusalem, there's no way he would have left that out. He brags about conquering Lachish, another Judah city, the second most important, but not Jerusalem. This is consistent with the biblical account that is found in 2 Kings chapters 18 and 19. At one point, both the kings of Israel and Judah were named Jehoram. The Jehoram of Israel was also known as Joram. In Judah, Manasseh became king when he was only 12 years old. Josiah became king when he was only 8 years old. And Joash became king when he was only 7 years old. Near the end of his life, Asa, the third king of Judah, had diseased feet. Uzziah of Judah had leprosy and had to live in a separate building for most of his 52-year reign. His son Jotham pretty much ran everything. According to God, there were only 8 good kings of Judah: Asa, Jehoshaphat, Joash, Amaziah, Uzziah, Jotham, Hezekiah, and Josiah. These were the kings that the text says did what was right in the eyes of the Lord. However, most of these good kings, though they did things like expel pagan shrine prostitutes and repair the temple, still did not remove the high places from the land. High places were sites of worship, often on a higher level of land. Some of these sites and shrines were for the worship of Yahweh, and some were for the worship of other gods. Worshipping other gods is obviously bad, but even the sites dedicated to the worship of Yahweh were forbidden. At these places, idols were often used, which is a big no. And after the temple was built, that was the only place that the people were supposed to worship. Of these good kings, 2 deserve special mention: Hezekiah and Josiah. Both of them were said to have done what was right in the eyes of the Lord, and they tore down or otherwise destroyed the high places. Josiah followed a couple of really bad kings, so when he started to purge the land of pagan worship, he had to remove altars and stuff that were inside the temple itself. Josiah's grandfather was Manasseh, who was the very worst of all the bad kings of Judah. He worshipped many, many gods that were not Yahweh, built shrines and altars to these gods, and set up shrines and altars inside the very temple of God, which is really bad. The Bible also says he sacrificed his own son to one of these pagan gods and killed many innocent people during his time as king. And finally, I bet you didn't know that according to God, none of the kings of Israel were good kings, because they all followed in the footsteps of Jeroboam, worshiping at the shrines that he set up at Bethel and Dan, and leading the people to do so as well. Thanks for watching. Hope you had some fun, maybe learned some things. If you have a suggestion for a future show, leave it in the comments and I'll see what I can do. So until next time, may you always have spare change for the vending machine. Bye.